My name is Amilcar Perez. I'm a librarian, and I am so happy because today we have a very, very special guest. And I'm going to give you a couple facts about him and about his business to see if you can guess who this guest is. Okay, so 1977 was the year that saw the doors of the business open. Um, Start thinking about it. Okay. The menu included not 20, not 10, but 5 items. That was 77, remember. Another interesting fact, there was a special, let's say, conversation with Paramount Pictures in regards to the USS Enterprise. By now, probably you know which business this is. Yeah, you guessed it right. Our guest today is the owner of Starship Sandwiches, and this is today Paul McKenna. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm just wonderful, Amakar. Thank you for having me on.
Very, very good to see you. How are you doing in this time?
When you say this time, I assume you're referring to the COVID
You know what?
crisis.
The pandemic,
So
yes.
I have to knock on wood and say that we are doing okay, which is much better than almost anybody else in this industry. Um, we have a pretty stable delivery and carryout business that we've been doing for years. So that played right into it. The thing is, we became caterers in '85, and the catering has completely died. So we lost weddings, we lost fundraisers, we lost any kind of meeting. We do a lot of school lunches and that kind of thing. So those were all canceled. And then but it's interesting because the pickup, and you know this yourself, or any of us know this because we're all eating a little more carry out than we used to because we're not going out to dinner, and we get tired of cooking again and again and again every night. Um, so we're ordering more out for carry out, for pickup and delivery. So that has served us well.
Got it, got it. And that's one thing that I wanted to ask, just to kind of have an idea of the background. But if probably you can highlight a couple challenges that you remember when you were getting started, that you can share about how you face those challenges at that time briefly, for the entrepreneurs who are listening.
Sure. The thing I'll mention is that when we started this place, we were young. We were 21 years old, and we took our savings, which was approximately $3,500 each. So it's about $7,000 to start the restaurant, which by today's standards would be about 25,000. Just to give you a concept of where we were at, which $25,000 to start a restaurant in today's world is nothing. That's very small. But anyway, we were open. So point being, we started on a shoestring. And so anything that came along in terms of a problem or a crisis could have been the end. Something major, like an air conditioner. We were talking about air conditioners breaking. You have a restaurant, you better have an air conditioner that works. Well, an air conditioner that works could cost $1,000, or if it's a central unit, it could cost 5 or 10,000. So that's the kind of thing that could close you when you first started. You don't have backup money. But what happened to us was we opened on November the 4th, 1977, which is a terrible time of year. And for those older folks, they might remember the country was in recession at the time. I believe we were still, we were out of Vietnam, but the country was in a depression at the time, a recession. And so we opened up naively. And after about 2 months, it was Christmas Eve. We closed on Christmas. So Christmas Eve, we shut the restaurant down, and we went home. And little did we know, our furnace stopped working, and so the whole restaurant froze while we were Christmas Day. and we didn't even think about it. So we came in on the day after Christmas, and the place was very cold, and we figured out the heat was off, so we turned the heat on and got it going, I should say. And after about an hour, when the place started to heat up, you could hear in the walls the of the pipes leaking. And there were probably about half a dozen pipe breaks throughout the place. And there was water on the floor. And I remember I had a cousin who was coming to see what we were doing because it was in the family and he was starting. And he came to the door and he said to me, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, we might be done." I said, "This might be it. I don't know how we're going to survive this," because we really didn't have any money. The place needed some major work, and there was 2 inches of water on the floor. And so when you open a business, and I guess this is advice for anybody who's thinking about doing this crazy stuff, you depend a lot on friends and family to help you. I always refer to Starship starting as kind of a barn raising, because the families behind us helped us paint, helped us tile, helped us just get going, clean up the place and get it launched. I'm particularly appreciative of quite a few family members who helped us. The point being that we called a family member who referred us to a plumber who came out and fixed all the leaks and billed us, and we paid them over time. That's kind of unheard of, that kind of trust that we would not fail and we would pay this bill. And I don't remember the amount, but I do remember we got the door open in the next 24 hours and we kept moving on after that. Those are the kind of crises that can happen. But that broken pipe story to me is the first real mountain or mental mountain that I had to face.
How did these challenges help your mindset in the situation that we're facing right now?
I think what it is that you start out with this kind of thin skin, and as you do this and you face these challenges, your skin gets a little thicker and thicker and thicker, and we have this attitude being self-employed of never failing. We will not give up. We will not succeed. And so I think those challenges over time have thickened my skin, where I could have a fire. I had a fire not too long ago, and you stay calm. You put the fire out. You assess the damage. It was a piece of equipment that started on fire, and we had to replace it. And you move on. You keep that door open, and you keep taking care of people when they call. But I think you get thick-skinned and you have to remain calm.
Thank you very much. I mean, coming from you, over 40 years experience, I mean, certainly that is so valuable. So now running into what you're doing different. So we know that you have the catering, and you mentioned right now that is closed for the most part. But what changes did you do in order to accommodate the needs and the challenges right now?
Okay, so this is a good one. Easter, the Governor Pritzker closed the state down on March 14th. And he did that for a specific reason, because all the bars and taverns were going to be filled with St. Patrick's revelers, patrons getting out and having a good time at St. Patrick's Day weekend. Easter was maybe 2 weeks later. I think it was early April. And we typically put out a buffet for Easter Sunday, family dinner for about $100 of baked ham, sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes, roasted Brussels sprouts, and corn. So it's a nice spread for a family of 10, costs $100, and nobody has to do all the work. But if you remember, there were no meetings or family gatherings happening for Easter this year. It was the first time. And so on Easter Monday, 6 days before the actual Sunday, we decided that this buffet that we typically put out was not going to sell. So we made the decision right then to take the same buffet and make individual plates and sell them for $12 each. So it was the same thing, honey baked ham, 2 types of potatoes, the 2 sides, bread and rolls for $12, and 2 people could have a nice Easter meal, which, you know, yourself, with one mate, partner, you're not going to cook all that food. You're not going to cook that much food for 2 people. But by doing this, we could sell them. So on Easter Monday, we launched this idea of individual meals, home cooked, wonderful 4-side spreads. And we launched it on Easter Monday. We sold 160 of these things on Easter Sunday, which we've never done that kind of business on an Easter Sunday. So right away, the light went off. This is a potential here. So we started then after that, what we call our Gimme Shelter meals. It's kind of written the same way the Rolling Stones song is, Gimme Shelter. So it's a nice play there. But since then, we've done 8 versions every week. We're starting Thursday night at 4 o'clock. We sell a home cooked meal. We've done chicken Parmesan, we've done barbecued rib tips, we've done smothered pork chops, each with a whole bunch of sides. And this week we're doing fried chicken with roasted garlic potatoes and honey brown sweet corn. And it's a wonderful spread. But they're going over really well. And the people that order them are pretty much ordering them weekly, the same names. So it's taking off. And it's driven strictly by social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchats, whatever. I have a social media person now, which I never had before. But in terms of rising to the challenge, these home-cooked weekend meals have really taken off for us.
I find it very interesting how this situation actually, to a certain degree, or probably a larger extent, that helps you to innovate and to think other ways of doing things. And you mentioned that you saw potential when you started shifting a little bit and moving things around. And I assume that some of these new strategies are going to stay in place probably for the long run.
When you say new strategies, I think the term is keeping your mind open towards anything. We're not just a sub shop. We were just a sub shop, but we're not anymore. And I think that open-mindedness has served us well. Another comment, my business partner and I have been doing this forever. However, we had no restaurant experience prior to this. So we came in with this idea of making this great sandwich. And then over time, we learned how to cook. We learned how to develop recipes. We learned how to manage people. And I think that, and the menu, especially at Starship, is always open. So I think that attitude of trying things all the time and morphing and maybe getting the menu to change a bit. I mentioned in my bio, which we haven't discussed publicly yet, was I started teaching at Triton College in about 3 or 4 years ago, and they threw a challenging class at me, French culinary. Now I'm not an expert at French food, but I became one, and even culminated with a trip to Paris not long ago, which was lovely. But I got pretty good at learning French food and the nuances behind a lot of the techniques that French cooks and chefs use. And so this has trickled into Starship. This little sandwich place on Madison Street is selling fine French food on certain occasions. I wouldn't say it's every day, but for instance, Bastille Week is coming up in July, which is the honor of the French Revolution, 1789. I'll have a full French menu all week during Bastille Week. That's fun. For me, it's fun. It's engaging, it's challenging, and my employees enjoy it too because they get to learn and try new things too. So that's one of the fun things about Starship is that we do a lot of different things. I like to call us a destination sandwich shop, and I can attest to that when after so many years, people grew up. I mean, with 40 some years, you could have been 10 when we opened up, and now you're 50, and your children, and we did your communions, we did your graduations, and then you moved away. Well, now you come back to get your favorite sandwich or your favorite soup or whatever. So we've become kind of a destination on Madison. I don't want it to sound arrogant, but we have a reputation and people seek us out. So I do consider us a bit of a destination restaurant, not just a convenient one.
Just briefly, what message would you give right now to our viewers and to entrepreneurs that are facing challenges right now?
Well, the one I always seem to sign my emails and my phone calls with is keep the faith, and I always use a capital F for faith because I think that relying on the higher powers to help us is something we have to do. So that's my advice, is that this also will pass. Maybe not as quick as we hope, but there is a light. And all this masks, which nobody wants to wear masks, and the social distancing. I mean, we're not a race of single people. We need each other. We need community. And keeping the faith is the one way where you can know that at some point in time this will pass. And that's my advice. That's our thought. Just hang in there because we can do this.
Well, Paul, thank you so much. It was a pleasure hearing from you, and a little capsule of all what you have done, and especially the challenges that have equipped you to innovate and to keep, as you mentioned, having the menu open for new things. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I just want to make another quick comment before I go regarding the library and the magnificent things you guys are doing to keep the public engaged. I mean, it's a library. People need to go to libraries. They need to. It's a huge resource for the public, and so the fact that you didn't just kind of like lay everybody off, close the door, and say, well, when they tell us we can open, we'll open. You're reaching out, and I think that that's admirable. So I give credit to you and Sky and the other powers that be at the library for being proactive and trying to engage the public. So thank you for all you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today in another episode of Let's Talk Business. This was Paul McKenna, owner of Starship. And so thank you so much. Don't forget to check us at the fppl.org. My name is Amilcar Perez, and see you next time to keep talking business.